This afternoon we will contemplate the experience of Lord Buddha's enlightenment before we go and practice one more session at the Bodhi tree. This is after his insight, after practicing austerities, when he realized it would be better to combine some concentration with focused contemplation after partaking in suitable nutriment for the body. Now when I had eaten solid food and had regained strength, then quite secluded from sensual desires, secluded from unwholesome states, I entered upon and abode in the first meditation. The translator writes this was accompanied by thinking and exploring, which is his translation of vitaka and vichara. With happiness and pleasure born of seclusion, but I allowed no such pleasant feeling as arose in me to gain power over my mind. With the stilling of thinking and exploring, I entered upon and abode in the second meditation, which has internal confidence and singleness of mind without thinking and exploring, with happiness and pleasure born of concentration, the second jhana. I allowed no such pleasant feeling as arose in me to gain power over my mind. With the fading as well of happiness, so that's from going from the sukha into a more pure equanimity. With the fading of the happiness, I abode in onlooking equanimity, mindful and fully aware, still feeling pleasure with the body. I entered upon an abode in the third meditation, referring to which the noble ones announce, he has a pleasant abiding who looks on with equanimity and is mindful. But I allowed no such pleasant feeling as arose in me to gain power over my mind. With the abandoning of bodily pleasure and pain, and with the previous disappearance of mental joy and grief, so any kind of craving and aversion, I entered upon and abode in the fourth meditation, which has neither pain nor pleasure, and the purity of whose mindfulness is due to onlooking equanimity. But I allowed no such pleasure as arose in me to gain power over my mind. So that's an interesting statement. I did not allow the pleasure that comes from these profoundly peaceful states to sway the mind. Basically it means Lord Buddha, the Bodhisattva at this stage, has excellent mindfulness. Tanajanana is often saying in practice, mai yin li, mai yin lai, not delighting, not falling into liking and disliking, and keeping the mind in the middle is the path of practice. When my concentrated mind was thus purified, bright, unblemished, and rid of imperfection. So he's entered first, second, third, and fourth jhanas, and then he comes out of the jhanic state when the mind had become malleable, wieldy. So it's an interesting word, isn't it? We often have an unwieldy mind. So this is a wieldy mind, a mind that can be directed. When it was steady, attained to imperturbability, I inclined my mind to the knowledge of recollection of past lives. So, entering the first, second, third, and fourth jhanas, the energy available in the mind is extraordinary. And then it can be directed because the mind coming out of those profound states, as has been said repeatedly, is not swayed by liking and disliking. The hindrances aren't affecting the mind at all. And so he directed his mind to recollecting past lives. I recollected my manifold past lives, that is to say 1 birth, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 births. Remember this laser-like focused concentration which has picked up a theme of contemplation, reviewing past lives. 100, 1,000, 100,000 births. Many ages of world contraction, many ages of world expansion, many ages of world contraction and expansion. I was there so named of such a race, with such an appearance, such food, such experience of pleasure and pain, such a life term, and passing away thence, I reappeared elsewhere, and there too I was so named, of such a race, with such an appearance, with such experience of pleasure and pain, with such a life term. Passing away thence, I reappeared here, thus with details and particulars I recollected my manifold past lives. This was the first true knowledge, attained by me in the first watch of the night. Ignorance was banished and true knowledge arose. Darkness was banished and light arose, as happens in one who is diligent, ardent, and self-controlled, but I allowed no such pleasant feeling as arose in me to gain power over my mind. Ignorance was banished. It's a very important statement. Lord Buddha explains in his teachings that the mind has 3 root kilesas, greed, hatred, and delusion. The delusion occurs because of ignorance. So the ignorance means not knowing. Because we don't know conditions according to their actual nature, we misapprehend them. That's what delusion is. So when the Bodhisattva has directed his mind to really knowing these conditions as they arise and cease, ignorance is banished. And when ignorance vanished, knowledge arose. I'm assuming that knowledge is one can deduce from the Buddha's own teachings that knowledge is to anicca. If you're recollecting 100,000 past lives, each one with a different name, different particulars, different location, you're going to see flux quite profoundly, aren't you? And when my concentrated mind was thus purified, I directed and I inclined my mind to the knowledge of passing away and reappearance of beings. So now he's looking at other beings, having a look at his own karmic history, lifetimes, with the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human. I saw beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, fair and ugly, happy and unhappy in their destinations. I understood how beings pass on according to their actions. These worthy beings who were ill-conducted in body, speech and mind, revilers of noble ones, wrong in their views, giving effect to wrong view in their actions, on the dissolution of the body after death have reappeared in states of privation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, even in hell. But these worthy beings who were well conducted in body, speech and mind, not revilers of noble ones, right in their views, giving effect to right view in their actions, on the dissolution of the body after death, having reappeared in a happy destination, even in a heavenly world. Thus with the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, I saw beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, fair and ugly, happy and unhappy, in their destinations. I understood how beings pass on according to their actions. This was the second true knowledge attained by me in the second watch of the night. Ignorance was banished and true knowledge arose, darkness was banished and light arose. Beings pass on according to their actions. So, this sounds to me like the insight into anatta. So, each of these births is the result of conditions that came before them. The positive conditions, the happy destinations, the unskillful, negative conditions, the painful, woeful destinations. Ignorance was banished, true knowledge arose, darkness was banished, light arose, as happens in one who is diligent, ardent, and self-controlled, but I allowed no such pleasant feeling as arose in me to gain power over my mind. When I concentrated my mind, was thus purified, I directed. I inclined my mind to the knowledge of exhaustion of taints. I had direct knowledge, as it actually is. This is suffering. This is the origin of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering, and this is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. I had direct knowledge, as it actually is. These are taints, that this is the origin of the taints, this is the cessation of the taints. So, avidya, lobha, moha and dosa, the three root kilesas. Ignorance, delusion, the craving for, craving not for, on the foundation of ignorance. So the ignorance has been uprooted, and the root kilesas which darken the mind have been uprooted. I directed and inclined my mind to the knowledge of the exhaustion of taints. The mind was purified. I had direct knowledge as it actually is. The cause of suffering, the knowledge of the noble truth of suffering, the cause of that suffering. We're going to chant the Dhammacakka Sutta under the Bodhi tree a little bit later, where Lord Buddha talks about the fact of the understanding of the truth, and then what has to be done in relation to the truth. When he teaches others, the dukkha has to be known as it is, and he knew it. The cause of dukkha has to be abandoned. He abandoned it. The realization of the cessation of dukkha has to be realized. He realized it. The path that leads to the cessation of dukkha has to be developed. He fully developed it. This is the way leading to the cessation of taints. Knowing thus and seeing thus, my heart was liberated from the taint of sensual desire, from the taint of being, from the taint of ignorance. When liberated, there came the knowledge, it is liberated. I had direct knowledge. Birth is exhausted. The holy life has been lived out. What was to be done is done. There is no more of this to come. This was the third true knowledge, attained by me in the third watch of the night. Ignorance was banished, knowledge arose, darkness was banished, light arose, as happens in one who is diligent, ardent and self-controlled. But I allowed no such pleasant feeling as arose in me to gain power over my mind. Would be amazing to be able to review, even if you could see 100 of your past lives in one evening, and then the precision of the spiritual powers that the Lord Buddha has, the power of the sati, that truth discerning awareness, that quality that can have a look at conditions as they are and see them as they are, with the stability of the profound samadhi, that it can be directed one after another, and then just seeing that causes this, that causes this, that causes this. And he did say, in other teachings as well, he said, sometimes it's heaven, sometimes it's hell, sometimes it's an animal, sometimes it's attractive, sometimes it's unattractive. So there's no, that's what such a gifted practitioner can see. There's no solid, unchanging condition in any of that. It really changes a lot. And I had an interesting experience recently where I asked one of my teachers who was visiting about two of the villagers who put food in the bowl each day. And I'm very kind to our village. I look upon them with kind eyes. I see their good qualities. I try to consider them and support them. I guess that even for me there's a kind of an assumption that they were building their virtue and that they were going to be going to happier situations because the life of farmers is difficult. And I was curious, who are these people that put food in the monk's bowl every day, come to the chanting each evening? And one of my Tanajans looked at them and said, they were Dawatim Sadeva's last life. And they came down and waited for the monks to come and build a monastery to support them again. It was very interesting. When you look at them, holes in their clothes, a tooth missing, sunburned, you're not thinking straight away, oh, Dawatim Sadeva's. So it was, even for me, I studied these things and I went, oh, our regular lay supporters have just come down from heaven to continue building their virtue and probably go back. But the impermanence, things really change from life to life a lot. Now there's a description in terms of the structure of conditionality in words dependent arising. Before my enlightenment, when I was still only an unenlightened bodhisattva, I thought, this world has fallen into a sloth, for it is born, ages and dies. It passes away and reappears, and yet it knows no escape from this suffering. When will an escape from this suffering be described? I thought, what is there when aging and death come to be? What is their necessary condition? Then with ordered attention I came to understand, birth is there when aging and death come to be. Birth is necessary condition for them. I thought, what is there when birth comes to be? What is its necessary condition? Then with ordered attention I came to understand, being is there when birth comes to be. Being is necessary condition for that. I thought, well, what is there when being comes to be? What is its necessary condition? Then with ordered attention I came to understand, clinging is there when being comes to be. Clinging is its necessary condition, etc. What's the condition for clinging? Craving. What's the condition for craving? Feeling of pleasure and pain. What's the condition for that? Sense contact. What's the condition for that? The sixfold sense base. I thought, what is there when the sixfold sense base comes to be? What is that necessary condition? With ordered attention I came to understand name and form, nama rupa, is there when the sixfold base comes to be. Name and form is its necessary condition. I thought, what is there when name and form comes to be? What is its necessary condition? With ordered attention I came to understand consciousness is there. What is it when consciousness comes to be? What is its necessary condition? Then with ordered attention I came to understand name and form is there when consciousness comes to be, and name and form is a necessary condition for that. I thought, this consciousness turns back upon itself. It does not extend beyond name and form. And how is it happens whether one is being born, and this is how it happens, whether one is being born, aging or dying, passing away or reappearing. That is to say, it is with name and form as condition that consciousness comes to be. With consciousness as condition, name and form. With name and form as condition, the sixfold sense base. With the sixfold sense base as condition, contact. With contact as condition, feeling. With feeling as condition, craving. With craving as condition, clinging. With clinging as condition, being. With being as condition, birth. With birth as condition, aging, death comes to be. And also sorrow and lamentation, pain, grief and despair. That is how there is an origin to this whole aggregate mass of suffering. The origin such was the insight, the knowledge and understanding, the vision, the light that arose in me about things not heard before. I thought, what is not there when no aging and death come to be? With the cessation of what is there cessation of aging and death? Then with ordered attention I came to understand, when there is no birth, no aging and death come to be. With cessation of birth, there is cessation of aging and death. When there is no being, no birth comes to be. When there is no clinging, no being comes to be. When there is no craving, no clinging comes to be. When there is no feeling, no craving comes to be. When there is no contact, no feeling comes to be. When there is no sixfold base, no contact comes to be. When there is no name and form, no sixfold base comes to be. When there is no consciousness, no name and form comes to be. I thought, what is not there when no consciousness comes to be? With cessation of what is there, cessation of consciousness. Then with ordered attention I came to understand, when there is no name and form, no consciousness comes to be. With cessation of name and form, there is cessation of consciousness. So trying to contemplate paticca samuppada is hard. It's not an easy subject. But what I glean from it is my trust and respect that the Buddha, the Bodhisattva could do it and did do it. It's like having a look, okay, there is this body and mind. There is this experience of suffering. What causes it? And so he is able to identify with his profound mindfulness the way the mind is attached, clinging, holding on. And then he's able to see, well, what happens if I let go of that? It's like, well, looking at at being and seeing all these co-arising conditions and seeing that there's actually no being there, the clinging is able to be let go of, and his mind is purified. So we chanted that 3 times this morning, just to acknowledge Lord Buddha's insight under the Bodhi tree and acknowledge that uprooting of ignorance is possible when we understand how to do it, cultivating the Four Noble Truths. And I thought, this is the path to enlightenment that I have now reached. With cessation of name and form, there is cessation of consciousness, etc., etc., etc. Suppose a man wandering in a forest wilderness found an ancient path, an ancient trail travelled by men of old, and he followed it up, and by doing so he discovered an ancient city, an ancient royal capital, where men of old have lived, with parks and groves and lakes, walled round and beautiful to see. So I too found the ancient path, the ancient trail, travelled by the fully enlightened ones of old. And what was that ancient path, that ancient trail? It was this Noble Eightfold Path, that is to say, right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. I followed it up. By doing so, I directly knew aging and death, their origin, their cessation, and the way leading to their cessation. I directly knew birth, its origin, its cessation, and the way leading to its cessation. I directly knew being, clinging, craving, feeling, contact, the sixfold base, name and form, consciousness. I directly knew formations, their origin, their cessation, and the way leading to their cessation. Isn't that cool? The Buddha knew all these things. And when he's saying, I knew cessation, that means I was experiencing something beyond the conditions. When he says he uprooted his clinging, then he doesn't say it in this verse, but we understand that he's experiencing Nibbana. He's experienced the unconditioned in seeing ignorance and craving and letting go of it through direct, clear seeing the nature of the conditions. His mind was released into the unconditioned. Now finally, here is the description in terms of the right judgment of the world of conditioned acts and ideas. Before my enlightenment, while I was still only an unenlightened bodhisattva, I love that phrase, I was still only an unenlightened bodhisattva. It's pretty impressive, if you ask me. But only a Buddha can say that, that when I was just that bodhisattva. In the case of material form, of feeling, of pleasure, pain, or neither pain or pleasure, of perception or formations of consciousness, what is the gratification, what the danger, and what the escape. So that's a very interesting way of looking at the samsaric situation. In case of material form, so your body, in case of feeling, pleasure, pain, and neutral. In case of perceptions, karmic formations, and consciousness, what is the gratification? What is the danger? What is the escape? Then I thought, in the case of each, the bodily pleasure and mental joy that arise in dependence of these things, the five aggregates, is the gratification. The fact that these things are all impermanent, painful, subject to change, that's the danger. The disciplining and abandoning of desire and lust for them is the escape. So, it's a very lovely, succinct way of looking at our situation and what we have to do. Know what it is we're attached to, see the danger in it, and cultivate the escape. So, oftentimes as a monk who is a teacher to a number of people, when somebody has an experience of a loved one dying, when they come and they ask, how do I get this grief to go away? And people want their grief. I understand impermanence, but I'm still really sad. And what people don't realize is that it's all of those moments when you love somebody that you're creating attachment. I love somebody or something, and then when you're separated from it, that's when the sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair comes. And you can't just decide, I'm not going to do that, because the cause of that is all of those thousands, hundreds of thousands of moments of loving attachment. So know the pleasure. We have to know what we're attached to. See the danger. Cultivate the escape. That's a very nice sentence. The disciplining and abandoning of desire and lust for them is the escape. So the disciplining of your desire means committing to your 5 precepts. So you live within the parameters of ethical conduct. That's putting the power of craving and craving for and craving not for within a safe container. The abandoning is when you keep your 8 precepts and you meditate and you practice more renunciation. When you're practicing meditation and a craving arises and you decide not to follow it, it ceases of its own accord. The more we do that in meditation, one of the hindrances arises, you know it goes away by itself. Craving arises, you see it arises, stay for some time and ceases. Aversion arises, you see it arises, stay for some time and ceases. This is the abandoning of craving, just not feeding it anymore. And when Lord Buddha was describing his process of entering the absorptions, the samadhi eventually plays a very important role in letting go of the final fetters. Once a person becomes a stream enterer. So for most people, it's not quite as Lord Buddha makes it look. Well, he did it in one night, right? He did it in one night after 4 asankhya's and 100,000 eons. It's most people with a more ordinary level of paramita, of virtue, will have often they'll have a temporary liberation, a glimpse of nibbana, and they'll have some vipassana insights. This is beginning to affect the ignorance, weaken the ignorance. Then a person might have the stream entry path experience. So what happens is a person will experience nibbana, and the mind is significantly purified, but it didn't get the full experience. Oftentimes it's said that people will have that before they die, as a power of the merit of the experience, the momentum of the path factors functioning in the mind, beginning to destroy the ignorance. A person, if they've had the sotapanna, stream entry fruit, it's normally understood that they will have the path, sometimes as they're dying, because the mind sees that impermanence very clearly, the mindfulness that's been cultivated. And in a subsequent birth, there'll be the sakatagami experience where the greed and the hatred is significantly reduced. So apparently Ajahn Buddhadasa said to Ajahn Jayasaro, when Ajahn Jayasaro visited him, that because you can have no more than a 7th birth, but Ajahn Buddhadasa said most beings do it in 3 or 4. It's probably a more common trajectory. When we're talking about the millions of people who became arahants, for most beings it seems to take 3 or 4 lives as a process. And I asked Tanajan, did they come down and practice again? And he says, mostly they'll be devas as a result of the merit of the sila, the dana that built the virtue enough for them to begin to have profound insights. It was a result of the merit of that, also the samadhi. And they won't necessarily even be contemplating as a deva, they're receiving the results of their good practice. But Tanajan said it's often as they're dying, the insight just goes deeper, and it might go from that heavenly state to the pure abode, the anagamis, and live for a very, very, very long time until the last of the karma is exhausted and the insight occurs. So, we have the path, we have the teachings, we know we have to cultivate the Eightfold Path, we know you have to keep the 5 precepts, 8 precepts when you can for periods of time. Know the pleasure, see the attachment, know the danger, cultivate the escape. That's why you guys do pilgrimages, do retreats. You are getting with the program, as far as I can tell. Sadhu. It's nice to cover this subject when we go into the Bodhi tree again, because I know a lot is happening. this is your third time there now, so I'm hoping that by now the just intensity and amazingness of it all, that you can kind of actually focus what actually happened. When we're looking at the Bodhi tree and we're looking at the Mahabodhi, kind of where we'll be sitting today, hopefully, there's the railing, there's the tree, the branches are above our head, the chedi is in front of us. So between the tree and the chedi is the site of enlightenment. So when you bow, when you meditate, try to collect your mind with faith. Just bring to mind what occurred there. And all these different beautiful qualities. There's just a quality of awe. Amazing that the Buddha could see all of those factors of the dependent co-arising. Amazing that Lord Buddha could review 100,000 lifetimes. Amazing, we were just there this morning, amazing that the Buddha practiced the extreme of austerity for 6 years, trying to find the escape hatch. He didn't succeed. But just the sincere effort, the unrelenting, incredible determination, motivated by compassion, is going to find the deathless to help us. And then he came down, he had his bath, he had his meal, he did his contemplations, and he did it. And the wonderful thing is, he demonstrated not long after that that was something that other people could accomplish much more swiftly than he was able to. Once he distilled with his discernment what we need to focus on to uproot our ignorance and let go of our attachment. So that's what we'll be chanting. We'll be chanting the insights into the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And in that sutta, the book that you have, the translations on the other page, when we're on buses going somewhere, you can just kind of read that and have a look. What it says about each of the truths, I did not know this. Now I do know it. I know dukkha. I abandoned its causes. I realized its cessation. I fully cultivated the path. And he's instructing in that sutta the Panchavaggi, the 5 bhikkhus, to do it. And of course, by the end of the sutta, Anya Kondanya became a stream enterer. In a couple of days we'll be going to Varanasi, where that Banaras, Isipatana, the deer park, where that occurred. So, very nice, isn't it, that we can go to the cave where the austerities were practiced, the place where the milk wash is offered, the place where the enlightenment occurred, the place where the first other being attained to stream entry, proving that it's possible for other beings to do it, that this is the Dhamma is nature. So Buddha Dhamma is truth. And that Lord, as Lord Buddha described just now, an ancient path that was already there that he rediscovered. That's Dhamma. That's always, truth is always truth. It's obscured by ignorance and delusion. And so when we pay respects to the Vajra Asana, the seat of enlightenment, you're also paying respects to ultimate truth, and you're affirming your potential. This is your nature. This is nature. When you realize what the Buddha realized, you'll be liberated. That's how it works. With clear seeing, clear knowing, mindfulness and clear comprehension, truth discerning awareness, ignorance is abandoned. Delusion falls away. Truth is experienced. The mind is liberated. So all sorts of wonderful emotions one can experience. Awe and gratitude and respect, loving respect for the Buddha, but also a deep confidence in your inherent goodness and your profound potential, that you can realize the same thing. And so when we pay respects also, Buddha is your refuge, Dhamma is your refuge, so paying respects to truth, paying respects to ultimate nature, that's your nature as well. Sangha is your refuge, other beings who are practicing rightly, practicing correctly, and all of those beings who've realized Dhamma by following Lord Buddha's footsteps. And so we set that resolution as well. This is the thing that I respect most. This is what I'm committing to. May I realize what the Buddha realized. If you have those kind of thoughts here with a focused, collected mind, it's going to be very, very profoundly powerful and very helpful to your path towards liberation. So I'm glad you're all here. I'm glad we can do this together. Let's go.